20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 20, 40, 60, 80, 200, 20, 40, 60, 80, 300. It's not going to be enough. So why was I counting my pennies up? Well, one of the major golf manufacturers is now for sale and available if you've got enough money. Now, which manufacturer is it? It's Taylormade Golf, who obviously have a phenomenal roster of tour players, make great equipment, and if kind of a bit like me, you kind of a dream rather than a goal of always owning a golf club manufacturer, if you've got the money, now could just be the time. Now, the slight sticking point for all of us is the asking price for Taylormade is a cool $2 billion. That's right, $2 billion. If you've got that kind of money lying around, you could be the proud owner of Taylormade. Now, you saw me counting my money at the start. Obviously, I've not got $2 billion lying around, can't cash stuff in for $2 billion. So what I was going to talk about in today's video was maybe something that might not happen, but would be phenomenally interesting if it was to happen for a couple of reasons. Could Nike buy Taylormade? So being such a big global sports brand, Nike have obviously always had an interest in golf. And I think a lot of golfers out there are kind of very aware of kind of from the Tiger Woods era. But if you wind the clock back even further back to kind of 1984, Nike, granted for clothing and shoes, signed Seve Ballesteros and Curtis Strange. Now, back then, they were two of the biggest players in the game. And like a lot of the sports manufacturers, I think they want to get into the golf industry and wanted to get the foot in first with the clothing and the footwear because that's where they're all known for. And it wasn't till quite a bit further down the line that they actually started with their own golf clubs. Now, the reason I think the Taylormade thing could be even more interesting is certainly in sports manufacturing, you would say, and year to year this might change slightly, but the two biggest companies predominantly are Nike and Adidas. Now, obviously, Adidas used to own Taylormade, and it was only actually in 2017 that Adidas sold Taylormade to a private investment company for $425 million, which is a huge sum of money. But I think you'll agree with the current asking price of $2 billion, it's gone up a bit since then. But actually, is it worth $2 billion? I think anything's only ever worth what someone else is willing to pay. But let's just kind of wind that clock back a little bit. So Nike first got into golf in 1984. If we talk about the Adidas link for now. Now, Adidas actually tried making golf clubs in the 90s. And I think if we said not great success would be an understatement. And I was playing golf back then. I was obviously much younger than I am now. But people never really got into the Adidas golf club thing. And it was very much kind of, are they a trainer company kind of trying to make golf clubs? And I think that was a real issue with kind of that stigma. People weren't really willing to give it a try. So they got out very, very quickly on that. And obviously a great way to actually get into the industry in a better way is to actually buy a leading golf manufacturing company, a hardware company. So when you look at Nike, you go, right, so Tiger Woods, 1996, I say burst onto the scene. Everyone was aware he was going to be huge. Signed with Nike and obviously announced Hello World. But it wasn't till a couple of years later, a few years later, in fact, I think it was 2001, correct me if I'm wrong on that one, 2001 till they actually launched their first golf clubs. And I was actually looked after by Nike Golf for hardware, clothing, and I thought the product was very good. But it never really kind of took off like I think Nike expected. And, even though they had potentially the greatest player ever and always had top-end players playing their product, there was never really that connection with kind of the public. And I think the public was still spending more money on your Taylormades, your Callaways, your Pings, who had that track record in golf. So in 2016, Nike decided to stop making golf clubs. And it was a big surprise, maybe not to everybody, but I think it was a pretty big surprise to most people. Like I said, at the time, I was actually looked after by Nike. So I remember getting a phone call from the rep, being sat on my couch at home, and him basically telling me that within the hour, there was going to be a global announcement that Nike were pulling out of the hardware business. And I knew it was never really hitting the numbers that they were hoping for, but I thought it was growing and kind of getting there, but globally it wasn't. So what it enabled Nike to do, and they still had to honour their contracts, is all their athletes that played their clubs would also have been head-to-toe clothing and shoes. So the big thing was they were still paying those contracts, but the players then had the opportunity to go and sign for different club manufacturers. And actually quite a few of the Nike athletes moved across to play Taylormade products. Obviously the biggest player being Tiger Woods, which currently he's out of the game, had a very nasty accident, and the whole golfing world, myself included, wishing Tiger a speedy recovery, whether that's back to playing golf or whatever, only time will tell. But huge amount he's done for golf, so everyone wanting the best for him. But we've seen kind of Rory McIlroy, Tommy Fleetwood's just joined, and there's a real huge number of players. So for me, that's where there could be an interesting link. Would Nike like to get back in to the golf industry, hardware-wise? And if they would, they've already got some very big name athletes already playing Taylormade products. So for me, that's where you look at it and say, there could be. Now, the sticking point could be the current world number one, Dustin Johnson, along with Colin Morikawa and other big players actually wear Adidas clothing and play Taylormade. So I think if Nike were going to buy Taylormade, I think it'd be a challenge because I think they'd struggle nowadays to just be, head to toe and clothing, golf bag, the works, because they've already moved away from that a little bit. But there's definitely a little connection there, and I think it'd be really interesting over the coming years. I'm not sure Nike have ever fully scratched that itch of wanting to dominate, but some of you guys out there will probably have opinions on this as well, and I'd love to hear your comments. Any of you guys watching that love the swoosh, would you like to see Nike buy Taylormade? And if they did, could you ever see Nike being relaxed enough to have another brand under their umbrella? I'm just not sure about it. I can see the links. I think it'd be phenomenally interesting to see how it'd pan out. But I think Nike are maybe covering their bases more, getting more golfers, athletes wearing head-to-toe clothing and not so worried about the hardware. But I do think it could be a very, very interesting idea that Nike could buy Taylormade. Now, do I think it'll happen? Probably not. Would I like it to happen? I don't know. It'd be interesting. I think there's other options, and I do think $2 billion is a lot of money. And you don't see any figures for what they're making, but I would think that's maybe a little high at the moment. But there's other interesting things. If Taylormade sell, will it be to another private investment group who think they can maybe come in, do what the last group have done, and then flip it for more money? Could it just be somebody who's phenomenally wealthy as an individual who would like to own a golf company, who maybe doesn't want to go down the Bob Parsons route of starting from scratch with PXG? Would you like to buy an established brand and go that way? Or could it be something really out there? Could someone like Amazon buy Taylormade and actually start going more kind of direct to consumer? Because I do think that the direct to consumer market is definitely getting bigger, and you can already see some of the major manufacturers starting to move that way, but it's kind of moving very away from the manufacturers have always been. But will Taylormade sell? Undoubtedly they will, because they are potentially the biggest golf club brand in the world. Will they sell for $2 billion? Probably not. It would go a little bit less than that, but it'll be interesting over the next few months. But I'd love some interaction from you guys about this. You know, comment below, let me know, will Nike buy them? Would you like to see Nike buy them? Have you got enough money to buy them? If you have, would you like me to come in with you? We can't go 50-50, but it'd be interesting, won't it? So comment below, let me know what you think. If you've enjoyed today's video, click the subscribe button below, ring the notification bell, and then you'll find out whenever I drop a new video. Follow me on all other social media platforms, all under Ali Taylor Golf. Hopefully catch up with some of you guys down here soon. Stay in contact.